o Jay, disseram que era para falar em português, porque algumas pessoas estão usando tradução simultânea. Acho que é um momento interessante para trazer alguém falando de um tema bastante afinado com o empreendedorismo, que é um pouco o DNA da escola, né? Então é muito bacana olhar essa plateia e ver alguns alunos, ex-alunos, que estão envolvidos com isso, nos ajudando, parceiros, colegas, e acho que vocês receberam um material aqui fora, né, da trilha de empreendedorismo que a gente vai lançar este ano. Nós sempre tivemos atividades relacionadas ao tema, temos um centro de empreendedorismo, a gente lançou a faculdade de engenharia, não sei quantos de vocês estão familiarizados com os cursos que a gente tem na graduação, 3 deles são na área pesada de tecnologia, mecatrônica, mecânica e computação. Se vocês vieram pela Coatá, vocês devem ter visto o prédio que a gente vai inaugurar agora, né? Ele é o dobro da capacidade desse e vai receber mais 11 laboratórios de engenharia. Eu brinquei com o Jay que o Insper, né, has been disruptive, né, por esses últimos 20 anos, a gente vai comemorar, inclusive, 20 anos de graduação esse ano, então vamos ter muitas celebrações, vocês vão ficar a par delas. Na maneira como a gente concebeu o ensino e como a gente concebeu pesquisa e a nossa governança. Então, a começar que nós não temos departamentos aqui na escola, né, nós não temos faculdades separadas. Eu brinco que, apesar de eu ser responsável por toda a graduação, eu mando muito pouco aqui, né? Eu tenho grupos de professores que, junto com alunos, com parceiros do mercado, continuamente desenham e estão abertos a possíveis melhorias e inovações na nossa graduação. E isso vale para a escola toda. Isso é uma governança realmente muito inovadora em ensino superior, né? Onde você tem uma ênfase muito grande em propiciar para o aluno a melhor experiência de aprendizagem possível. Então, a gente está muito feliz de inaugurar a trilha de empreendedorismo, que vocês receberam o material. Vários aqui contribuíram com ela, e a gente espera, né, que mais pessoas interessadas no tema contribuam. Vai ser uma trilha para toda a graduação, para os 5 cursos de graduação, e ela vai funcionar ao longo dos 4, 5 anos, dependendo do curso que o aluno tem aqui. E ela começa com uma orientação forte na parte comportamental do empreendedorismo. A gente quer dar uma visão crítica, acho que todo mundo aqui na plateia é bastante crítico, que esse termo empreendedorismo ganhou muito corpo, né, quase elevado a status, às vezes, de religião. E a gente sabe que empreender é muito mais difícil, né, especialmente num grupo de jovens. A gente sabe que os estudos mostram que os jovens, as pessoas com mais de 40 anos de experiência no mercado, tendem a ser mais bem-sucedidas em negócios do que o empreendedorismo estudantil. Tem um monte de evidências sobre isso. Então, a nossa pergunta é como nós podemos ajudar o empreendedorismo mais jovem. E, claro, isso não exclui a gente ajudar empreendedores que estão em outras fases da vida. Eu acho que é importante a gente criar um ecossistema que, de fato, impulsione, né, traga tecnologia, uma visão nova para os negócios que a gente sabe que o Brasil precisa tanto. Eu brinquei com o Jay, e aí eu descobri que o Daniel falou isso para ele ontem, né, que disruption é um termo que não existe no Brasil, né? E, aliás, eu fiquei me perguntando por que será. Talvez porque a gente tem tanta disruption no Brasil que a gente, né, não nem vê a necessidade de definir um termo. Por outro lado, isso gera uma série de oportunidades para negócios. Acho que ele vai trazer uma visão crítica, né? Do nosso ponto de vista, a gente vem discutindo muito esse termo, a gente tem professores aqui da casa que discutem com a gente, também não glamorizar disruption, né? Muitos negócios vão ser bem-sucedidos sem necessariamente be disruptive. E acho que isso é importante a gente diferenciar. Muita gente que é do mundo da estratégia diz, será que é mesmo disruption ou é só a velha e boa diferenciação de mercado, né? Então, acho que a gente precisa cunhar uma visão crítica, mas acho que, independentemente da discussão, acho que tudo passa por uma boa provocação da forma como a gente vê a realidade ao nosso redor. Né? Eu, como sou professora de pensamento crítico aqui, não posso deixar de fazer uma deixa para o tema. No fundo, a gente está preparado, diante do que a gente, né, vislumbra de oportunidades, a rever os nossos modelos mentais, a maneira como a gente concebe evidência, a maneira como a gente estabelece crenças. É uma atitude diante da vida de contínuo aprendizado, de contínua curiosidade intelectual e sem deslumbramento, porque a gente sabe que, às vezes, né, você não é disruptive no seu business model, mas você pode ser na sua atitude em relação ao cliente, na sua atitude em relação aos empregados. Quer dizer, tem muitas camadas aqui possível de como a gente pode de fato, trabalhar com esse termo. Então, acho importante vocês conhecerem a visão do Insper, entenderem por que a gente está bastante feliz de sediar esse encontro. A gente espera que vocês contribuam com perguntas, que vocês se aproximem cada vez mais da escola para a gente poder materializar essa trilha de empreendedorismo. Depois, no bate-papo com o Jay, vocês vão ter né, junto com ele, 2 professores da casa. Um é o Vabo, que está com a gente na trilha, o outro é o Daniel, que é professor da nossa educação executiva, e também trouxe o Jay para a escola, trouxe essa oportunidade para a escola. A gente tem um time super bacana de pessoas, professores, estou vendo a Andréia aqui sentada, né, ex-alunos, enfim. Então, eu acho que vocês estão num bom momento, a escola celebrando os 20 anos, a gente bastante interessado em discutir esse tema de forma crítica. É um bom momento para vocês ficarem ainda mais próximos do Insper e conhecer mais o que a escola tem a oferecer para todos aqueles interessados no tema. Então, sem mais delongas, eu vou chamar o Daniel, já agradecendo mais uma vez pela oportunidade, e ele vai fazer todas as apresentações. Obrigada.
Bom dia, pessoal. Bem-vindos. Um grande prazer estar aqui com vocês. Obrigado a todos pela atenção, pelo tempo. Prazer tê-los aqui. Queria agradecer primeiro o Insper, Carol, todos os outros professores pela recepção de sempre, muito legal, por ter cedido, aberto a casa aqui para a gente poder fazer esse evento. Prazer estar aqui, ainda mais um lançamento da trilha que a gente ajudou a construir, que é tão importante. Thank you, Jay, for coming again. Primeira vez do Jay no Brasil, espero que vocês aproveitem. O Jay tem uma carreira bastante especial e uma experiência muito bacana, acho que vocês vão gostar bastante. Agradecer também os nossos co-apoiadores, aí, a Anjos do Brasil, vai falar daqui a pouco, a Play Capital também está aqui com a gente. E para vocês entenderem um pouquinho da dinâmica, então, a gente vai ter a palestra, depois da apresentação dos nossos parceiros, a gente vai ter a palestra do Jay, e depois a gente vai abrir aqui um painel, eu, o professor Vabo e o Jay, para pegar perguntas e também conversar um pouquinho sobre o assunto. Então, peço que vocês segurem as perguntas até o final, anotem, e aí a gente, quando abrir o painel, a gente tenta sanar todas as dúvidas. Tá? A palestra do Jay, lembrando, vai ser em inglês, então se alguém não pegou e precisa do tradutor, está ali na recepção. E quem gostar e depois quiser o livro está à venda aqui na porta, e aproveitar para pegar o autógrafo do Jay. Tá bom? Falando um pouquinho da gente, né, além de... Eu tenho 2 chapéus aqui, um de professor aqui do Insper, mas acho que o meu principal hoje como sócio da Mindset Ventures. A Mindset é um fundo de investimento de Venture Capital. A gente investe em startups de tecnologia nos Estados Unidos, principalmente no Vale do Silício e em Israel. Então, a gente está bastante ligado e antenado com o que está acontecendo de tecnologia no mundo. E a gente investe fora, principalmente capital brasileiro, e ajuda essas startups de fora a virem para o mercado brasileiro. Então, a gente faz o trabalho um pouco inverso de tentar aproveitar o que o Brasil tem de melhor, né, de tamanho de mercado, de oportunidades, de grandes empresas, para abrir nosso mercado para grandes startups de tecnologia de fora do Brasil. Então, a gente faz um pouco o trabalho de investir fora e trazer as empresas. Nessas andanças todas, a gente conheceu o Jay, e acho que é muito um prazer poder compartilhar esse conhecimento com vocês. Tá bom? Obrigado a todos, espero que vocês aproveitem e guardem bastante pergunta para o final. Vou chamar agora a Maria Rita, da Anjos do Brasil, para contar um pouquinho do trabalho deles também. Obrigado.
Bom dia, pessoal. É um enorme prazer estar aqui com vocês hoje, né? Esse é o primeiro evento que eu estou indo esse ano, né? Janeiro, chegando ao final, primeiro evento. E eu acho que ele é muito significativo. Por quê? Porque a gente olha aqui quem está organizando, quem está participando, e vê muito uma coisa que é fundamental para esse ecossistema, que é colaboração. Então, a gente está numa universidade, um super parceiro de todo mundo, que é o Insper, que tem trazido esse tema muito forte, junto com a Mindset, que é um Venture Capital, junto com a Play Capital, que é um Venture Builder, e a Anjos do Brasil, que trabalha em investimento anjo. Isso é fundamental, e isso mostra toda essa perspectiva que a gente tem para um ano incrível. Falando muito rapidamente do que é a Anjos do Brasil. A Anjos do Brasil é uma organização sem fins lucrativos de fomento ao investimento anjo para apoio ao empreendedorismo de inovação. A gente trabalha em 3 verticais. Nós somos uma rede de investidores. Hoje são mais de 380 investidores no Brasil inteiro. Então, se você é empreendedor ou vai empreender e tem um projeto que está buscando esse tipo de capital, procura a gente, entra no nosso site, se inscreve. A gente está sempre buscando bons projetos. Se você quer investir também, a gente está aí para ajudar você a participar de uma rede. Investir em rede é fundamental. Mas a gente trabalha muito forte com criação de cultura e difusão de conhecimento. O fato de estar apoiando esse evento da Mindset é muito isso. Se a gente não entender, tanto como investidor, como empreendedor, ou como ecossistema, como isso funciona, como funciona essa escada de investimento, o que é uma startup, por que ela cresce mais depressa, como que a gente faz esse processo com boas práticas, simplesmente não dá certo. É muito importante compreender isso. Então, participar de eventos, procurar esse tipo de conhecimento e criar uma cultura de startups real no Brasil. Terceira vertical que a gente atua é com políticas públicas. Entendemos que, quando o governo apoia o investimento em startups, o resultado que se obtém é muito melhor. Isso é uma experiência mundial e a gente percebe que, agora, no Brasil, a gente tem uma grande oportunidade para poder trabalhar isso. Então, muito obrigada pelo convite para apoiar vocês, para estar aqui hoje. Eu estou bem ansiosa para ouvir a palestra do Jay, acho que vai ser incrível. E aí eu queria convidar o Marcelo da Play Capital para vir aqui também compartilhar um pouco.
Bom dia. Vou tentar me alongar muito, vocês já devem estar meio ansiosos aí para ver a palestra do Jay, mas primeiro agradecer a presença de todo mundo, os convidados tanto da Play quanto aí do pessoal do Insper, da Mindset, da Anjos do Brasil também, e dizer que para a gente também é um privilégio estar participando disso. Para quem eu não tive a oportunidade de conhecer, meu nome é Marcelo Nicolau, sou um dos sócios da Play, junto com o Rômulo e outros membros da Play que estão aqui hoje. E só para falar um pouquinho da Play para vocês, a forma como a gente gosta de se colocar ou de se resumir, a nossa motivação, né, a nossa missão é tentar ajudar empreendedores, ajudar empresas e ajudar investidores, como alguns de vocês estão aqui, a tirar a inovação do papel. Né? Então, tirar do blá, 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 tirar do PowerPoint e tentar colocar ela para rodar na vida real. E a forma como a gente busca fazer isso é tentando ajudar essas pessoas desde a fase de concepção da ideia, né? Ou tentar ver se aquela oportunidade ela realmente existe e como que ela pode ser uma ideia mais forte, até a parte de validação, a parte de implementação e criação de um plano de implementação e muitas vezes até na gestão desse negócio junto com a empresa ou empreendedor. Então, tem alguns clientes nossos que estão aqui hoje, enfim, Nestlé, Visa, CBMM, outros clientes, parceiros nossos de algum tempo aí que podem, acho que, atestar aí essa parceria que a gente tem aí há alguns anos. E para a gente é um privilégio estar participando disso daí junto com o Jay, porque acho que o que ele vem falar aqui hoje, que é disrupção, tem tudo a ver, acho que com o que todo mundo faz aqui ou está relacionado de alguma forma. É uma palavra bem surrada, acho que aqui no nosso vocabulário, que acho que está ganhando uma semântica diferente. Então, acho que trazer uma pessoa do calibre dele para poder colocar a perspectiva do que é disrupção pessoal e disrupção também de mercado, acho que dá uma clareada para a gente no que realmente significa esse tipo de coisa. Tá? Então, mais uma vez, obrigado pela presença de vocês. Espero poder conversar com um de vocês aí depois. Mas, sem mais delongas, queria convidar aí para o palco. Uma salva de palmas aí, o Jay Samit.
Ancient times, cavemen figured out how to make a knife, and then they discovered bronze and made a bigger knife and a sword, and kingdoms were defended by swords. And you get to that scene with the guy with the giant sword, and Indy takes out a Smith & Wesson and goes like that. That's disruption. Doesn't matter if you make a better sword. No more swords. A car disrupted the horse business. But what we're now seeing is disruption is happening. Oh, turn on MRI. Oh.
Now you can hear me. Sorry about that. I'm pretty loud. But now we're seeing disruption happening at faster than Darwinian rates, faster than governments can adjust, faster than laws and policies can adjust, and faster than most large businesses can adjust. So right now, more people are being put to sleep by the largest hotel chain in the world, and they don't own a single hotel. The biggest taxi company doesn't own a single car. The biggest media company in the world makes absolutely no media. The biggest retailer in the world has zero inventory. And the fastest growing currency in the world isn't backed by a single nation state. These are all massive disruptions. Trillion-dollar sectors of the global economy change virtually overnight. So as much as this is change can be good or bad. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So disruption isn't about what happens to you, it's about how you respond to what happens to you. So let me start off with a basic example of a startup. 10 years ago, got to go back to ancient times, I'm old. 10 years ago, broadband was just coming out. Before it was dial-up, the internet was very slow, and video wasn't a big player. But people were already dating online, long before swiping. You'd go to websites. You had to use more than one finger. And what happened was, three guys that are friends of mine said, wait a second. If we make dating sites have videos, we will make so much money. So they built a website called TuneIn Hookup. And you could put up videos and you could see people's personalities, their accents, everything about it. This is the first dating video on their site. Women, nothing says, I'm a hot guy than posing in front of the elephant at the zoo. So they built this perfect site, but they looked at the data, it wasn't working. What they didn't anticipate in their business plan was no one wanted to date these losers. But they looked at the data, and TuneIn Hookup noticed something very unusual. And women will agree on this one. You're not going to date that guy, but you're going to show that video to every one of your friends to show what the dating pool was like out there. So they shared the videos. So the first year, they changed the name of the company to YouTube. And they became billionaires without a penny in revenue. That's disruption. Every 48 hours, there's a new self-made billionaire. In US dollar billionaire. What'd you do the past 2 days? None of these people came from special families. They didn't inherit money. They didn't go to the right schools. Many didn't even go to college. They don't all live in first world nations. They can live anywhere. The world is literally flat. Because right now, each of us is one click away from 7 billion customers. You only have to be right for a nanosecond to become wealthy or change the world. So what I want to talk about today is what makes a disruptor, how does a disruptor think, and have you leave with 5 things that you can do today, not tomorrow, to start changing your life and thinking more like a disruptor. So, second example, great friend of mine. How many of you have been at the airport when your flight's been canceled? Okay, that's my test that you know English. We just sit there and take it. So my friend was sitting there with his girlfriend, and his flight got canceled, and see all these people. And he goes over and he finds out what it costs to charter a plane, figures out the math, writes on a piece of cardboard, holds up a sign, so that he and his girlfriend can end up flying back home for free. And that's how a high school dropout music guy starts an airline. It really is that simple. Richard Branson has started 8 different companies that each became multi-billion-dollar companies in separate industries. He also started 300 companies that didn't do anything. Virgin Brides being my favorite. It was a wedding gown company, but the brand just didn't translate. But the interesting thing about Richard is there's no fear of failing. What you'll find out if you become an entrepreneur is you either win or you learn. And learning's just as valuable. So you can fail to success. Culturally, many cultures don't like this. In the US, an investor's more likely to give money to somebody whose first venture failed than somebody that hasn't been out there. There's no shame in failing. There's a difference between failing and failure. Failing is finding out what doesn't work. Failure is throwing in the towel and giving up. So, wow. Sorry. So handsome. So, we're going to talk about 5 things for personal transformation. In my career, I have been very lucky to partner with some of the most disruptive minds on the planet. I started the first auction, which became later eBay. I worked with Reid Hoffman to launch LinkedIn. I worked with pre-IPO Facebook. And in each one of these cases, I learned, wow, are these people seeing the world differently? What is it that they're doing? If you would have told me when I grew up, my dad was a public school teacher, I lived in modest means, that dozens of friends would become billionaires, I would have asked what you were smoking. It didn't seem conceivable. I didn't know what wealth was or how the world worked. And billionaires are getting younger and younger. Kylie will become a billionaire this year at 21. Little help from Kim, but self-made. She'll be worth more than Kim, more than her mom. And it's not just because she's a pretty face. They're looking at opportunity. How do you monetize that ability to connect with billions of people and nobody in between? So there's many, many disruptive technologies. We're in an era where so many, but I'm going to go deep dive on 3 that I'm obsessed with. So cryptocurrency, blockchain will completely change a whole problem that we have with security, whole problem that we have with how we handle data. We're creating more data this year than in all recorded history going back 14,000 years combined. And that stat will be true next year and the year after and the year after. We're creating data at exponential rates, yet we're analyzing less than 1% of it. There's the opportunities for new insights and new businesses. The second is augmented reality. Augmented reality will change everything about your life, no hype. And the last is my favorite because I do this all over the world, so this is to entertain me, not you. How many people own an electric drill? Keep your hand up if you own 2, 3. Don't visit their homes. No. I'll talk about why the electric drill's up there at the end. But something's fundamentally changing out there. So business as usual is dead. Everything that you probably learned and assumed isn't working. And that's why you see these 100-year-old companies, these large industries file for bankruptcy. When you talk about locally, petrochemical, huge moneymaker for the past 100 years. Solar now is cheaper. So even if you don't care about the planet or care about the environment, you are using solar. Oil is not coming back, coal's not coming back. So you're going to see fundamental industries change. And there'll be winning nations and losing nations, those that can adapt. The scarier thing is half of all jobs will disappear within this decade, probably in the next 7 years. So look at the person sitting next to you. One of the 2 of you won't be able to find a job. Guaranteed. So if you like democracy, if you like stable countries, you need employed people. The only people that create jobs are entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs are not people that sell something. That's the big misconception. An entrepreneur solves a problem. Solve a problem for 5 people, you have friends. Solve a problem for 1 million, you have money. Solve for 1 billion, you change the world. That's what's fun about this. So here's one of my favorite pictures of 3 failed industries. So in the US, Borders was a bookstore chain. I was in one of your bookstores yesterday. Amazon completely changed it. Why? A bookstore could only hold so many books. Amazon could hold every book. The person in the bookstore may know you, may know some of their books. Amazon knows everything and about everybody and what they're looking at and can recommend something exact to what you like. Blockbuster was our video rental chain. Their competition didn't hide their business plan. They named themselves Netflix. At the time they were called Netflix, they mailed DVDs in the mail. They didn't name themselves DVDs in the mail flicks. They said, we're going to bring this to the internet. And Blockbuster just sat there arrogantly saying, we own this market, until they went out of business. And the last one, you'll see weeds growing in that parking lot. Shopping centers are disappearing. Ownership of cars are disappearing, so the need for parking lots and traffic will get better in São Paulo. There will be less cars doing more efficient, the Uberization of traffic, and a bunch of scooters to send you to the hospital with cracking your head open. So, a lot of people, and many of your parents may have told you to go get that job at the big company. Get that secure job, have security, that's important. Well, of the original Fortune 500 companies, less than 57 are still around. So there's no security in the big companies. So it's not security that robs ambition in life. It's the illusion of security. So why live your life chasing an illusion that's already been proven not to work? And the companies that do survive are those that reinvent themselves and do self-disruption. The same thing that I talk about in the book, How to Disrupt Yourself. So let me take one of my favorite examples, Apple. Apple is a failed computer company. I'll say it again, a failed computer company. Never got past single-digit market share. Did a number of transactions with Steve. I'm in the big, thick Steve Jobs book. When they couldn't win in computers, they sat down and said, where can we attack to try to survive? Let's try consumer electronics. Let's go after the Sony Walkman with the iPod. That worked out pretty well. At the time they decided to come out with a phone, Nokia had 50% of all the phones in the world. Nokia's no more. One of the funny things is if you look at their patents, you can see where they're headed. The best way to predict the future is to hang out with those that are coding it. So one of my favorite patents that Apple has is for tennis shoes. When you walk, you make kinetic energy. You can capture that energy in the heel. So if your phone's running dead, you go, Mom, hold on, I'm charging my phone. Because supplying all this energy for all of our wearables that we'll be doing is the next, challenge. So let's talk about how this world has changed. All of these things were physical things that you once owned. They were manufactured in factories. Here's my desk from when I graduated college. All those things were made in a factory, shipped in a ship, trucked in a truck, sent to a store, stocked on a shelf. You carried it home. And one by one, they've all vaporized. They've all become ones and zeros. They've all become digital. Anything that can be made digital will. And with that digitization came new business models for how those things work. And the apps were born. So we're replacing factory workers and unskilled labor with highly specialized and skilled labor. Big disruption for this country, manufacturing jobs going away. A robot works 24/7. Each robot not only replaces 8 factory worker jobs, but those factory workers don't have to go and get lunch. They don't have to ride on a bus. They don't have to go and get their clothes cleaned. You suddenly see how robots change. I sit on a board with a member of Foxconn. That's the world's largest manufacturer. They make your iPhones, your Sony PlayStations, your Xboxes. They make everything. They have 1 million factory workers. Their goal in the next 3 years is to take that number down to 50,000 workers. They already have 8 lights-out factories. I asked them, what's a lights-out factory? The lights are out because there's no human in the factory. No need to waste the light bulbs and electricity. So the change is happening very, very fast. And the industries that are going to be automated are not just blue collar. Accountants, auditing. I was recently vice chairman of Deloitte. We did $44 billion. Everybody's our client. Most of those jobs are going away. They'll be replaced by AI systems. My favorite automation in Silicon Valley right now, and when I came down here, I was looking up local fun facts about Sao Paulo. You guys eat 1 million pizzas a day. You're my kind of folks. I love pizza. Silicon Valley has a self-driving pizza truck. That's not the fun part. The fun part is it's stocked with the uncooked pizza. Waze knows how many minutes it is to get to your house exactly. It turns the oven on at the exact moment. When it comes to your house, a drone flies out of the roof of it and brings it down to your front porch, your back table, wherever you put the little X. Nobody's in it, nobody's making it, and there's burger flipping ones for McDonald's. Everything that can be automated will be automated. So what happens now? We're suddenly going to have an acceleration of disruption because all these exponential technologies will work together. 5G, you've heard about, is coming out in telecommunications. Go, well, we had 4G, we had 3G, it's another G, who cares? 5G allows the bandwidth so we can now have massive amounts of data, massive amounts of video. So our whole world will have Internet of Things sensors. Our heads-up glasses will give us real-time information. Industry will have an active, dynamic supply chain, globally knowing exactly what's selling, what's not, where things are. So everything suddenly communicates. 5G is supported by edge computing. Just-in-time manufacturing will allow bespoke, custom products. So if your business model was, I am making a car and everybody buy my car, how do you compete with somebody that will make a custom car for somebody that they get the same day? You can't. We're also going from a world of words to images. Post-literate, a fancy word for illiterate. In the US, the majority of college students never read another book after they graduate in their life. That includes audiobooks, Kindle. As an author, pains me. But that's a fact. We're communicating with imagery. And we're not the only ones. Our devices are now recognizing everything. I recently was hiking in the rainforest of Costa Rica. Absolutely beautiful, something they didn't explain to me. Everything in the rainforest is there to kill you. Don't touch that bug, it'll kill you. This plant, it'll kill you. That's not a vine, that's a snake, it'll kill you. So, if you got bit with a snake, you hold up your phone, it's not going to tell you the Latin name of the snake. It knows you're in a rainforest. It knows their GPS. It knows there's one thing you want to know. Is it poisonous? Or how many minutes do I have to call a loved one? That's what's going on with object recognition. And not only will it help you know your world, so you can walk around and read any sign in any language as you travel the world. You can read any menu and not accidentally eat dog. You can do all these things, but it goes one step further. Whosever system you're using, the Google, the Facebook, the Apple, knows what you're looking at, knows why you're looking at, and customizing that more. So if you're in your self-driving car and you eat McDonald's 3 times a week, they know it's 2 o'clock and you haven't eaten lunch yet. They know you're 1,600 feet from a McDonald's. They know that if they make a French fry float across the sky, you'll drive through there. That's the world we're coming to. So we've had 4 revolutions of computing in my lifetime. We're getting into the 4th one. Very excited about it. So the first one was the personal computer. Allowed us to interact with machines. Then the internet allowed us to interact with mankind's knowledge. What was interesting about that is when I was in school, they used to tell us the difference between man and the animals is man had language. Animals have language. Then it was man uses tools. There's a lot of animals that figured out how to use tools. The sole difference of how we ended up being supreme on the planet and destroying it is we're able to store all of our collective knowledge outside of our body and pass it on. That's our secret sauce. So the internet allowed us to connect all mankind's knowledge, one click away, or you can watch cats playing on the piano. The choice is yours. But the technology's there. Mobile connected each of us to each other, suddenly made us one. There's no one that you can't reach. There's no xenophobia. Governments still want to create xenophobia, but we're one planet, one market, one people. But what we're now going to get is the ability to connect with our environment. And that's what augmented reality and Internet of Things are. Instead of Googling and searching for information, our environment will conspire to bring the information to us when we need it. I'm hungry. They know I'm hungry. They know my eating patterns. They know where I eat. And it's a complete change. So here's the opportunity for those of you looking, where do I start a business? And I'll tell you how to start businesses later, but here's an opportunity. 10 years ago, the iPhone came out. There were no apps before the iPhone. Today, we all live with apps. We can't survive without them. Many people became billionaires and changed the world with these amazing apps, Uber, whatever. But in the first year, 2 of the top 10 apps, one was a cat game with kitty cats, and the other was a fart app. You could have started any of these other apps at any time. Augmented reality is the same thing. So your largest tech companies, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, Google, are spending tens of billions of dollars to make sure that they don't miss this window. This isn't a maybe, this is the next 3 years completely changes everything. So they're looking at the big pieces. Whose hardware are you going to use? Whose operating system? How do we get our ads into that? If no one's searching for information anymore, what happens to Google? We all used to live on a desktop. Had Google not bought Android, Google would have been out of business. Android was started by someone other than Google. That's your opportunity. Right now, we stare at our phones for hours and hours a day. 3 years from now, that phone will not leave your pocket. Yes, there's things that are obvious that you can figure out. You're in real estate and you can look at any house and know all the information. But how many things in your life are unique that you have a perspective that no one else has, that you can launch a business just on that one app? And in the sense of business, our interaction as consumers to businesses will be all automated. 85% of the interaction will not be human to human. I'll give you an example of one of my clients. One of my clients hires 22,000 people a year. It's a lot of people. Most don't get an interview. It's not possible. So you have a bunch of resumes. You have software that recognizes words. You find the key words, and those people that figured out how to put the right words on the resume get an interview. Turns out, Google did studies on interviews. We're really lousy at interviewing people that are good for a job and good for a company. We hire people that we like or that are like us, which may not be the right thing for that job. So what I built for this company is no one will get a human interview. Sounds callous, sounds cold, sounds not nice. It's quite the opposite. Everybody will be interviewed by a bot, a chatbot. That chatbot won't discriminate against men versus women, won't discriminate race, age, national origin, anything. Number 2, you now know what questions the chatbot asked, how they were answered, and over time, which questions ended up making the difference of who's a long-term employee. What school did you go to, or do you own a dog? People that own dogs may stay in the job longer. So you will actually get data from the process and hire better people over time and make an equal playing field. Too small to see, but these are some of the other industries that are completely being disrupted. LEDs, energy, big data, trillion-dollar sectors that are completely changing overnight. And it's not distributed equally, the change. There are countries that are losing all their sources of revenue, and then you add on top of it climate change so that crops that once grow there won't. And you're talking about we're also going to enter an era with more refugees than after World War II. So again, huge problem, huge opportunity. The bigger your problems, the bigger your opportunity. If you grew up with no problems, you'll make a lousy entrepreneur, and when we elect you, a lousy president. When I'm out of the country, I have to make fun of Trump so people know I'm not crazy. Our country's crazy, but anyway. So this is a tour of Tesla factory. Notice all the happy workers. Interesting, if any of you are Terminator fans, Skynet, we had our first robot murder. If you're touring a factory, don't stand where the transmission's supposed to be. The robot will weld you. So, self-driving cars are completely disrupting the auto industry. Nobody wants to own a car, you can have Uber. Nobody wants to lease a car, you can have Uber. If you want a car, I drive a self-driving car, or I'm driven by a self-driving car. It's safer than I've ever been. It's more relaxing than you've ever been. You can be more productive than you've ever been. But it also changes what we do in the car. That is a 3D printed car. You can print. So 3D printing fundamentally changing our world. And if you're not staring out a window when you're in traffic, trying to get cross town here, what are you doing in the car of the future? That vacation starts the second you get in your car. It's a party on wheels, okay? Tesla just took this to the next step. They have romantic mode in the Tesla. Half of what they add on Tesla is just to make owners happy. It's just they have a sense of humor. So the big screen turns into a fireplace. It turns the seat warmers on in the heat. The speakers play the crackling sound and Barry White music. Barry White's a romantic singer. It works. Now, if only somebody was in the car with me. No. So let's talk about 3D printing. 320 million manufacturing jobs will disappear in the next year. Massive disruption, but massive opportunity. A fellow professor, I teach how to build a high-tech startup at USC. A fellow professor invented a 3D printed house. He can make an entire house. Think of after a tsunami, an earthquake, anything, make an entire house in 2 days. You know how much money he's going to make with his business? Nothing. His competition can now do it in 1 day. That's the pace of disruption. You can 3D print in metal. You can 3D print food, human tissue, almost any substance you could think of. But let me tell you where the entrepreneur comes in. So here's my favorite example. God forbid your child is born missing fingers or a limb. Prosthetics are very expensive, and they grow too fast, so most won't get them until their teenage years. So think of the personality and the life of a small child in school that can't play, can't be last one to call. Their whole personality changes. Their whole trajectory of who they can become is changed by a minor handicap. Now with 3D printing, you can print for about $15 a working electronic prosthetic. But the entrepreneur comes in. Friends of mine went to Disney and said, I want to license Iron Man. I want to license Frozen. I want to license Star Wars. Ooh, I want the Frozen girl on my team. I want the Darth Vader kid on my team. Now you're better than, you're enhanced, you're cool. And the end result, this young girl born with no forearms just played a concerto and there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Amazing. That's what you can do as an entrepreneur in solving a problem. Anybody know what this is a picture of? This is how we get chicken in the United States. I eat meat, I'm not knocking meat, but when you mass produce and put a bunch of antibiotics into the system because we're mass producing, what a shock that there's always problems in the system. Now you can 3D print meat. They have bred plants with hemoglobin. Hemoglobin's what makes your blood red, so that you can have a burger that bleeds. It tastes just like a burger, Impossible Meat. It's mushier. It's more like cat food if you eat a lot of cat food. No. They have to figure out how to make it more solid, but they got the taste there. So you no longer need to take down acres of rainforest for cattle. You can have kosher or halal pork. You can have anything you can think of. There's no animals involved. And better for the environment. You can now 3D print cornea. So no more glaucoma, no more blindness. We just had the first transplant of a 3D printed nose. No rejection of 3D printed kidneys and 3D printed lungs because you're using the actual cells of the person and then 3D printing them in the form that you need. CRISPR is an interesting technology that's aligned to this. CRISPR is gene editing. Think of if you have film and you cut out a little piece. So in the US, not being done on humans. In China, Chinese doctors just got in trouble. The government actually funded it, but once the world heard about it, they arrested them. Because you can now gene edit humans. And it will always start with solving a problem and then go to the dark side later. So in this case, this young girl has leukemia. She had less than 2 months left to live, so they allowed gene editing, went in, took out the leukemia, she's cured, going to have a normal life. What if you can do that to whole nation states' armies where they can't get AIDS or they can't get this disease or that? What does that do to the other country that can? So a lot of ethics will come up. We talked about crypto. So cryptocurrency allows each of us with our biometrics to become an ATM. We can send money anywhere, frictionlessly, no cost. We can pay anyone. We can have a banking system that governments can't stop at borders, that you don't have to ask permission to get your money. And if your country's money becomes worthless, you don't have to keep your money in that. I mean, Venezuela now, you could fill this auditorium. They're going to have 1,000,000% inflation this year. Why would anybody want to get paid in their currency? So you can have a rational currency. China, a few years ago, China didn't have credit cards. If you wanted to change your airplane flight, you had to bring a stack of cash to the airport in China, in Beijing. And obviously you don't have that, so you have to go to a bank. Real pain. They skipped all that and went to mobile payments and did $5 trillion in mobile payments. Visa, not part of it. MasterCard, not part of it. Mobile pay, completely changing everything. And WeChat already saw that they have the audience. Why not find a way to monetize? The unbanked is the huge opportunity. If you hang out later, I'll talk to you what I'm doing there. We figured out how to give credit to the 2 billion poorest to help give them a 30% raise so they're not borrowing money at incredible rates from loan sharks or having money siphoned off when their family members are sending it back to the nation land and that type of stuff. But if you think the unbanked is something that is suffering here or in Africa, of U.S. households where the head of household, the husband or wife, are 30 years or younger, half are now unbanked. This is a serious crisis. So blockchain, I'm sure you've heard about it, sure, completely rational, completely transparent. You no longer have to worry about anybody breaking into your database and stealing data or changing it or corrupting it. Because if the chain's recorded on 1 million computers, you'd have to simultaneously hack 1 million separate computers, and the only person that has enough computing power to do that is Google. Even major governments don't, so not going to happen. This is the head of the International Monetary Fund, absolutely saying the cryptocurrency. Now, in my opinion, Bitcoin is DOS. We wouldn't have Windows, we wouldn't have the computer revolution had it not been for DOS, but when was the last time you were writing anything in DOS? So they proved it with Bitcoin. We'll see which currencies, and a number of nation states will be launching their currencies. But you also have Apple coming out with a currency. Facebook has a currency team. It goes on and on. What it'll allow is for complete transparency. If you're in banking, if you're in fintech, the relationship of what a bank is and where they make their money will completely change. Worked on a project where we made a cryptocurrency that is being used by now the 20 largest banks in the world. You'll never have access to it. There's no need for worrying about fraud. Those are the only people. And it's for cross-border settlement. If you want to send a bunch of money from here to China, it takes you 3 days for clearance on both sides, for trust. Now, it's instantaneous, but due to bureaucracy, it takes 3 hours to have everybody agree it was instantaneous. According to a study by Goldman Sachs, this one project has saved our clients $11 billion a year. That's the power of disruption. But more information and more data means more creativity, more insight. So we're not in a world that's just going to be dominated by engineers. And for those of you that have no engineering background, every person knows nothing about engineering, listen to this. You have all written at least as much code as Steve Jobs, who created a $1 trillion company. Steve never was an engineer, never wrote a line of code. Woz was the genius. Woz couldn't build a $1 trillion company. There's opportunity for everybody. The head of Alibaba recently admitted Alibaba was already launched, already successful. He was in his 30s before he bought his first PC because he didn't want anybody to know that he didn't know how to use a computer at all. So, data is what's driving sales. Data is your friend. Data should be invited to every meeting. Data doesn't lie. And so if you ever have an ad, which ad's right, which logo's right, which color, just A/B test, and you'll get the answer. There's a team in Russia that runs little algorithms of which images get click-throughs on Instagram to buy products, and they're making about $100,000 a day. They don't even know what products are selling and not. It's all completely automated by A/B testing. So creative thinking, creative problem solving, critical thinking, that's the key here. We're also going to have a global shortage of doctors. And so wearables will be really key of us taking care of our own stuff. So instead of going to the doctor after you have the heart attack, what would you do if your earpiece says to you, you're definitely going to have a heart attack in the next 72 hours unless you do the following? I think you'd listen. So it'll completely change. And by us all sharing that openly, we will now be able to have new insights of what causes diseases, what cures diseases. Actually, we all become part of a collective ability to solve these problems. So now let's talk about augmented reality. I have to use US numbers. I don't know local numbers. In the United States last year, 85 million pairs of glasses were sold that cost more than $150 that came with one app, Focus. Another 50 million came with a second app called Sun. So you will buy a pair of glasses just for one app. What if it was language translation? So the point is, if the price point of augmented glasses is the same price as regular glasses but gives you access to more apps, we'll be wearing glasses. I was recently in the labs of one of the big tech companies, and they have a team that now has working contact lenses. I call that witchcraft. It's unbelievable. Heads-up display. So this is what our world will look like. The street will change colors, so you don't have to worry about which way the cars are coming. If it's time for you to walk, it can be green. If you can't walk, it's red. Everybody will have stuff popping out, and it'll look like Times Square if you're on acid. But each one of those is a different filter and a different app. Unless you're 14, you're not going to turn them all on. And just like you have 200 apps on your phone, but you only use 6, it'll be the same here. So those big companies are fighting to be one of those 6. Everybody understands that augmented you can do it today, Pokemon Go, you can do it with the phone, you can do it with a tablet, that you can add stuff to the environment, but you can also take stuff away. So video games have already proven this, and AR is much, much bigger than VR. VR is the little adopted little kid's sister that you kick. Good for gaming, good for very limited industrial uses, gets you nauseous after 20 minutes. The investment dollars, if you want to know what technologies are going to be big next, follow the money. Tens of billions of dollars. So you could stand in the wine department and say, I want to see just French wines. I want to see French wines that I've tasted before. I want French wines that I've tasted before that have a rating of such and such. But the more important thing that you can do, you can turn any surface into a shopping area. So it's not there, but you want to have the tactile feel. But augmented reality isn't just about adding to the environment. You can subtract from the environment. When you're in a big supermarket, there are 40,000 products. In a typical household, you'll buy 200 in a year. So finding your 200 out of that, I don't go to retail, so I don't understand how people do it, but it's not fun. Now imagine all of a sudden your 200 product changes. You go to the doctor, and the doctor tells you you have diabetes. You can't have anything with sugar. Now you can stand in the aisle and say, show me the products without sugar, and everything else disappears. So Walmart, our big retailer, every product has now been scanned in by a company to do this. So the shelves will literally look empty except for those products. Or show me the ones that they talked about last night on my favorite cooking show, or show me whatever it might be. So right now, everybody's spending all that time to design a package so that it'll pop off the shelf and you'll see it, and the next person's doing the same thing and saying, that's gone. You're going to make data-driven decisions. And again, if you can't see it, you can't do it. For one of the fast food chains, we just worked on a system, the people that assemble your burger. If you order a cheeseburger with no cheese, that person is so used to putting on cheese that, it happens. But when they go to the cheese bin, they don't see any cheese. A human won't grab something that they cannot see. It's really there, but it looks empty to them. So, changes. Now we get to the electric drill. I'm so excited by this. In your lifetime, according to the Drill Association, you will drill for 13 minutes. IKEA bookshelf. In your whole lifetime. So why own a drill? If a drone can drop one off in the morning, it can even wait for you, right? Take it back and you can rent it. You can share things. It's called the sharing economy. So those things that aren't being dematerialized, they're being shared. Sharing economy is changing everything. You see the scooters have just invaded here. I live in Los Angeles. It looks like locusts. There's so many of them. They pay for themselves in 7 days. So the investment, if they get stolen, damaged, they don't care. And there's literally tens of thousands of them on the streets that you have to dodge now. Two women that I wrote about in the book were in college, and they faced an existential problem that only women understand that men don't. They have to go to a really nice party. Do they spend all their money and get that beautiful pink dress that they want, but then they're going to have to wear that dress to the next 10 events because they don't have any money and be known as the girl in the pink dress? Or do they buy a crappy dress so they can buy another crappy dress and another crappy dress and another crappy dress? So they came up with a company called Rent the Runway, where you could get top fashion and just send it back. And it's changed the entire economics of the fashion industry because that's what everybody's doing. So now everybody can live like Kim Kardashian and wear outfits once. You want a Birkin bag just for the party? It's $100. But what brings us all together is UX and UI. Uber didn't win because it was novel, it was right, it was data. They did it because the consumer experience is better. I can go in any country where I don't speak the language, and my car will come, and I don't have the local currency, and take me exactly where it needs to go. And now they'll tie in and know how long the drive is, know what my playlist is, so when I get in the Uber, my music is playing. If there's a TV screen in there, what's next on my Netflix playlist can be playing. They'll know that I'm going to the restaurant because it's my anniversary. They'll also know they haven't seen me buy anything, so there are some flowers in the back seat. I can have the choice to buy them or not buy them. I have the choice of staying married or not staying married. So they're going to be selling a lot of stuff in the back seat. This is about maximizing what you do. They also know the average person that they dropped off at this restaurant, they stayed for the average X number of minutes, so they can ping you, would you like us to pick you up now? That's a good customer experience. So your environment's going to do a lot of the thinking for you. So let's get into what you need to do, okay? You're not going to get that big idea doing the same thing that you always do. If you look throughout history, all of the innovation happened at crossroads of different cultures. My favorite example is the printing press. We're now 500 years of Gutenberg and the printing press and 500 years of lying to kids that Gutenberg just sat there like, you know, the mad scientist in Back to the Future and came up with the flux capacitor. Nothing could be further from the truth. What happened was 2,000 years ago, the Greeks loved olive oil, and squeezing an olive, bad for the arthritis. So they invented the olive press. And it took another 1,000 years for somebody to say, if we made a bigger one, we could put grapes in there and not have to stomp grapes this way to make wine. So in 1500 Germany, everybody suddenly went into the Riesling wine business. And though the population was small, they made more wine that year than is made in all of Europe nowadays. So everybody went broke. Now there's all these used wine presses, very, very cheap. And Gutenberg's like, wait, I have another use for that. So the moral is you don't have to necessarily invent something new. You have to find a new use for something that somebody else already invented. So this is the way you have to start looking at it. If you want something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done. Get out of your normal stuff. And we all are taught that we have limitations. Your parents told you this because they wanted to protect you from failing, from feeling bad. Your teachers told you, so you get in your mind, you can't public speak because in third grade, show and tell, you freaked out. You're bad at math because you missed 4 times 7 when you were, 10 years old. You know it now. So the whole point is you can change your internal voice. You can change how you see yourself. You are made out of the same stuff as the universe. You're as limitless as the universe. The only person that can stop you is you. And the second you realize that, it's a very, very freeing thing. May not happen overnight. But if you don't stop, you'll get there. Everybody thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing themselves. So change isn't about looking at a business, an industry, a sector. It starts with if you can change that inner voice, if you can change something that you believed was unchangeable within you, you will suddenly see how easy it is to change the world. And that's the exciting part of this. I have changed and worked in many, many industries. I have built apps that are used by billions of people. I did this because I wanted to. There's no gatekeeper stopping you from capital. There's nobody blocking you from markets. There's just the limits of your imagination and putting it. So, start looking at every obstacle as an opportunity in disguise. I have an exercise in the book that I do with my students. If you want to have more deal flow than any venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, pay attention right now. I guarantee this. Today, not tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. Today, just write down 3 problems in your life. I'll give you the first one, traffic. Okay? And do this every day for 1 month. First couple days, it's easy. Oh, this is easy. But after about 2-3 days, you run out of problems because you've accepted things the way they are. So one of my readers sent me the results of what he launched from doing this. Got up one morning, he's taking his medicine as he always does. The phone rings, takes the phone call. And then he's staring there looking at the bottle. Did I take the pill or not? Normally you just go, I don't know. But he was doing the problem. Oh, that's a problem. And then he started thinking about it. If I take too much, I die. If I don't take it, I don't get better. I bet you this happens to other people. So he took a little Happy Meal, a little teeny Happy Meal watch, couple penny watch, put on the lid so when you close the lid, it sets the clock back to 0. So you can look at it and go, 3 minutes. Yeah, I opened it 3 minutes ago. Or 8 hours. No, I didn't take it. Then he added Bluetooth. Now I know whether grandma took her medicine, and I can call grandma and remind her to take her medicine. And if she knows how I'm so psychic, she'll stop taking it, so I call. But he's now turned this into a huge business, and then there's now a bill before our Congress to mandate this, because the studies show that on drug efficacy and missed days of work and everything else, this will save $20 billion a year. All from just looking at the moments of our life that we take for granted. And there's a million of these, okay? And there's no problem that is so great that you can't overcome it. Matter of fact, that is the definition of human history. Overcoming problems. You know, we wiped out most of the big giant animals in our hunter-gatherer days in North and South America. So by the time man invented the wheel was invented in Mexico and invented in Mesopotamia, there was nothing that could pull an ox. You know, no need to make an ox cart here because we'd eaten all those, which is why that civilization advanced and here it didn't. The wheel had no purpose if there was no animal that could pull it. So we constantly solve problems with new things, and we have lots of problems. So psychology behind this is if you're in a positive state of mind, you will see opportunity. If you're in a negative funk, you won't. And we all work with that person that comes in every day. You're never going to see it. They wouldn't see it if it was right in front of them. So start each day with these two things. Tomorrow can be better than today, and I have the power to make it so. And what happens by saying those in the mirror, and there's studies behind it, and you can read them in the book, is you light up the synaptic nerves, and you release endorphins, the same thing that's released by cocaine. So suddenly, you're feeling positive. And when you have that positive state of mind, you will be more attractive, more liked, have better ideas, be more successful at work, and have a happier life. The only person that can control how you think about your day is you. Again, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond. And that's one of the secrets. The next thing about having a positive mindset is it's not all about you. To be successful, solve for others. And the more people you solve for, the more successful you are. It is that simple. There is no secret sauce. The other thing is, the world is changing. If you haven't figured that out by now, it's changing very fast. It's not going to stop. Tomorrow's my birthday. Tomorrow I turn 58. If I was your doctor and I told you, I'm 58, I haven't read a single medical journal since I got out of med school 30 years ago. You could be in a wheelchair and you'd walk out of my office, okay? You wouldn't go to that doctor. Why should anybody employ you if your skill set, your knowledge, your thinking isn't current? Again, choice is yours. Stay relevant, not stay relevant. That's why I wrote the book, and I thank you so much for your time. And I think we're now going to have questions. And in case you want to ask a question in Portuguese, I will do my best. Anybody want to be the first brave one with a question?
Espera só um pouquinho para você pegar a pergunta no microfone. Tá ligado?
Or they can yell it out and we'll repeat the question.
They will talk on the microphone so they can. Pode fazer em português, por favor? E aí o pessoal vai traduzir para eles. Agora está funcionando. Pode fazer em português mesmo.
Existe ser disruptivo demais?
Disruption for disruption's sake. Oh, I can't listen to myself in another language. I have a woman in my head, but I identify as a man. Being disruptive for disruptive's sake proves nothing. That's just like running around. Constantly challenging things, if it builds something of value from that process, it's an endless process. There's no end state other than death. And many entrepreneurs are now trying to push and change that. So.
Mais um.
Obrigado pela palestra, foi muito interessante. Meu nome é Vinícius. Eu queria fazer uma pergunta sobre se existe alguma evidência de qual metodologia seria melhor para aplicar no desenvolvimento de uma startup. E a segunda pergunta seria quais os fatores que são preditivos para o sucesso de uma startup a longo prazo, né? Se existe isso, se existe algum estudo sobre isso.
Sure. So the biggest problem with just focusing on studies is studies are rear view mirror. So, but here's what I've seen. I've taken stakes in 80-some startups. I have an amazing track record of never losing a dime yet. How many iterations of your product and your idea can you do between your ears before you start spending money? Too many entrepreneurs skip this step. I say be like Jesus and get a bunch of disciples, get a bunch of customers, not your families, not friends that tell you, oh, it's great. People that would spend money on it, and ask them to tell you why your idea sucks, because it does. All of you can pitch me your ideas and I'll tell you why they suck. But what happens is your big, broad idea is usually an obvious one. But as you start working on it and looking at the data, you'll discover, because you went deeper into the forest than anybody else, you'll discover what does work. And that's where those innovations happen. That's where, you get something like YouTube. You see a use case that you wouldn't have known without that data. So spend as little as you can to get as far as you can. Raise more than you ever think that you'll need. If people want to give you money, take it. And try to take money that doesn't cost equity or doesn't want to be paid back, what I call OPM, other people's money. And I talk about that in the book. There's tons of big companies that will give you millions and millions of dollars, and they don't want any of your company, and they don't want to get paid back.
Bom dia, professor. Bom dia, professor. Parabéns pela palestra. Eu acho que sempre esquecem do mercado de educação como um campo a ser disruptivo. Eu acho super importante, dado esse futuro que a gente está indo. Acho que a maneira como a gente aprende hoje, filosofia, ética, matemática, não está de acordo para onde a gente está indo. Algumas pessoas têm essa cabeça disruptiva e construíram esse pensamento, têm esse mindset e estão revolucionando o mundo. Como que você vê assim, a educação, se existe um campo disruptivo nisso e como você vê isso afora? Eles não aparecem nenhuma barra, nenhum gráfico. Nunca vejo uma mudança grande na educação nesse sentido.
Queria complementar a sua pergunta. Vou complementar a sua pergunta, pedir para o Vabo também falar um pouquinho aqui, até como professor em nome do Insper, também um pouquinho como que ele está vendo essa mudança no sistema educacional. O Insper teve a introdução da engenharia aqui com uma pegada já um pouco mais empreendedora, agora está lançando a trilha. Acho legal ouvir um pouquinho também da perspectiva Brasil, como que o pessoal está fazendo. Então, Jay, you go first.
Okay. So education is getting disruptive in spite of itself. So most of what a university does hasn't changed since Oxford in 1015. But a number of things have changed using technology. One of the easiest was you could be the greatest robotics professor in the world who happens to be at Stanford, but you can only teach people that are at Stanford. So now they can put a course online, and the first summer that he did that, this professor made $8 million. So his knowledge could go anywhere. The idea of a degree in 4 years and all that may not be relevant for many, many fields, and continuing knowledge and online access to knowledge and experts and all of that continues to change. I was passionate about this. When I sold my first startup and was trying to figure out what do I do next, it was in the 1990s. In the US, I believed that the internet could lift up the classroom. There were no internet in any schools. Schools didn't even have phone jacks. There was no wireless back then. And make a long story short, I started writing about the impact that I believed it could have, and I get a call one day from the President of the United States, go do it. One minor thing, no funding to do it. 18 months later, we had wired every classroom in the United States without $1 of taxpayer money. And what came out of that was the people that were passionate about it and solving these problems went on to start some of the most amazing companies, including Google, Eric Schmidt. So the method, the main thing is that knowledge and the transfer of knowledge has to become a part of life, not a stage of life. Does that make sense? So that's how I see it changing.
Boa tarde, quer dizer, bom dia. Jay, obrigado pela palestra bastante inspiradora. E eu acredito que essa questão da educação é realmente algo que a gente observa como sendo uma indústria que veio sendo muito pouco disruptada nesses últimos anos. Você vê, o formato ainda é o mesmo nos últimos 2000 anos, que você tem uma pessoa na frente da sala de aula, que é um detentor do conhecimento universal e tem que ficar lutando para conseguir a atenção dos alunos e transmitir esse conhecimento. Então, nós acreditamos que a educação ela já está sendo e vai ser cada vez mais disruptada. O que nós acreditamos é que o conhecimento ele já está disponível e que o ambiente de sala de aula é um ambiente em que a gente precisa ter esse customer experience, ter esse foco total no aluno. Então, esse método de ensino que é focado no professor, ele já está ultrapassado. Então, nós aqui no Insper acreditamos que o aprendizado precisa ser focado no aluno. Parece um jogo de palavras, ensino focado no professor ou aprendizado centrado no aluno, mas, na realidade, faz toda a diferença quando nós observamos que a gente pode utilizar a tecnologia a nosso favor e fazer com que o ambiente de sala de aula possa ter cada vez menos uma aula expositiva teórica e que a gente utilize para que possa construir o conhecimento coletivamente. Então, deixa de ser uma visão unilateral do professor para os alunos e você consegue fazer com que a sala de aula seja um ambiente de simulação, um ambiente em que a gente possa fazer a discussão e essa construção, tanto do que já foi descoberto pela humanidade, como, principalmente nas aulas de empreendedorismo, que é o foco da nossa trilha, que a gente possa, e na própria engenharia também com os laboratórios, que a gente possa descobrir coisas novas. Então, todo o foco dessa abordagem é em a gente centrar na resolução de problemas. Então, a gente vai para a rua, tenta descobrir problema, tenta encontrar oportunidades, tenta prototipar soluções e, com isso, poder construir esse conhecimento. E aí eu queria te perguntar, pela sua experiência, como que você vê o ensino de empreendedorismo, o ensino de inovação nas principais escolas de negócios? Segue essa linha ou ainda é um método mais tradicional?
So business schools have to align closer with industry so that their knowledge is more current. But the broader thing of how you set up a school and what courses you have to take, and to the person that asked, can be disruptive for disruption's sake, Brown University is an Ivy League university in the United States, one of the top schools in our country. And they did the most disruptive thing that when I first heard about it, I basically go, because my son went there, I go, this is stupid. But then when he explained it to me, I go, this is genius. So let me tell you what they did. This is how disruptive. Brown has no required classes, and no classes have grades. I'm going like, party on. No. But now let's change that. When I went to university, there were classes you had to take. I have to take geology. I hate geology. Like, I'm going to just waste my time and try to pass something that I hate. But the second you change the customer experience, where it's a buyer's market, students will only take classes that they heard were good and interesting. Which means if nobody hears that geology is fun and interesting, the geology department gets zero budget, and all those professors lose their jobs. Same for English, and same for every other history and every other department. So suddenly you change the university into a buyer's market where students are asking, who are the most brilliant professors? What do I want to do? And you now see this in business schools. You see this, you're reading his book right now, my friend Reid Hoffman, when you have somebody that built several billion-dollar companies is saying, I'm going to be teaching this semester, the line's out the door. Well, the line should be global. So whatever you're teaching here should be videotaped and made available to all. And the economics actually pay it out, because those people becoming successful will then endow the educational system.
E aí eu queria aproveitar também essa oportunidade. Eu achei interessante a quantidade de informações e dados que você trouxe para a gente e toda a quantidade de disrupção que o mundo vai ter ainda. Mas eu queria pegar pelo outro lado, queria focar em uma outra abordagem. O mundo nunca teve uma quantidade tão grande de ansiedade e depressão. As pessoas, metade das pessoas vão perder seus empregos. Então, como que os governos ou a própria sociedade vai lidar com essa demanda tanto de saúde mental quanto de ocupação da população?
Going into the heavy stuff now. In the United States, and I hate to use United States data, but that's all that I've memorized, life expectancy for almost every age is going up, except for one. Males who didn't go to college are dying younger. Opioids, drugs, suicide, because here's what's happening. They lose their job, they lose their identity, they lose their family, and then they lose hope and lose their lives. So on a systemic level, when you start talking about the amount of disruption, there's going to be massive chaos. I don't believe the economics of a living wage work. I don't believe that continuing the path of how we educate people for a world that they don't have a job to go to works. And so the only solution that I see is we have to create a more entrepreneurial society. I don't know if that will solve for all, but it does give each individual the choice to survive. I don't have all the answers. Good question.
O que a gente acredita aqui no Insper é que se todo mundo quisesse ser... Deixa eu esperar a tradução. Então, o que nós acreditamos...
Go ahead.
What we believe here in Insper é que se todas as pessoas quiserem ser fundadores de empresa, empresários, provavelmente não teria espaço para isso. Mas a gente acredita que se todas as pessoas quiserem ser empreendedores, sim tem espaço. No conceito de que empreendedor não é só a pessoa que cria a empresa, mas empreendedor é um mindset, é uma atitude. É quando você efetivamente quer empregar os recursos da sua vida em prol de um sonho, em prol de um propósito, que isso pode acontecer de você criar uma empresa, ou você pode empreender de uma grande empresa, ou você pode empreender no governo, você pode empreender criando uma ONG, e por aí vai. Então, nesse contexto, eu queria te perguntar se você concorda com isso, esse mindset de empreendedorismo, e principalmente, da onde você enxerga que vêm as maiores oportunidades de disrupção. Se isso vem das startups, das scale-ups ou de empresas maduras. E se, dentro desse contexto de empresa madura, como que esse mindset de empreendedorismo pode funcionar?
Okay. So I absolutely agree that being an entrepreneur is a state of mind. In English, we also have a term called intrapreneur. I don't know if you have that here, of having that mindset in a big company. I've only had 3 jobs where I've had a boss in my life. I make a lousy employee. And it was to go and change major corporations, to change Sony, to change the music industry. And you can do it from the inside. It requires a couple of things that are very rare to find. One, somebody at the top has to have your back, because you're going to be uprooting people's power base, their way of doing things, them being important, you're not important. And shockingly, people inside the company will try to fight change, will try to sabotage you, even though in the long run, it'll mean their demise. So Kodak, who invented the camera, made millions and billions of dollars on film. They invented the digital camera, and they killed it. They just killed it, put it aside, and wanted to go away, thinking that would be the end of it, when in fact it was an obvious invention. Others perfected it until Kodak is no more. So if you have an innovative idea, a disruptive idea, go to your boss. If they stop you, go to their boss. And if everybody's getting upset and you get fired, it may be the greatest thing that ever happened to you, because if they're not listening, they're doomed. You only have so many revolutions on this planet. You only have so much time. I'm not a big believer in wasting it. So go and take that risk and go to that person, and you may find that a CEO was dying to hear from somebody with a new idea, and your career will accelerate. But trying to wait for somebody else to make that change or to give you permission to make that change, never going to happen.
Vamos abrir para mais uma da plateia, Daniel?
Vamos. Alguém mais?
Como você comentou, um dos grandes ativos atualmente para ser disruptivo é a quantidade de data disponível e a utilização dessa data. Ao mesmo tempo, tem todo um debate de questão de privacidade, problemas com o Google, com o Facebook. Então, como é que você tem visto isso afetar ou não o crescimento das empresas? E o que você tem visto para o futuro para tentar evitar esse problema de diminuição de dados ou de acessos relativos?
Okay.
Dentro da mesma linha, mais ou menos, de raciocínio, para mim é a questão um pouco da ética, do que vão se fazer com essas informações, do que se vai fazer com esses dados, quem vai reter isso. E quando a gente fala em medicina, nós estamos daqui a pouco fabricando gente, então tem todas as questões éticas que a gente passou aqui talvez de uma forma como se isso não fosse de alguma maneira, a gente vai ter que discutir isso bastante, eu acho. Queria ouvir a sua opinião.
Okay. So I will probably upset many in here with my views on this. I recently testified in front of the EU on the issue of privacy. And the EU wants to make sure that each of you can keep your medical information private and sacred. And I said, well, then you're guaranteeing that Europeans will die younger than the Chinese or the Americans or anybody else. Because there's a social good of people being able to see what happens to all of biology to be able to then make drugs that help others. If you wore an exercise wristband that tracked how much you walked, it also turned out to be the largest sleep study in the history of mankind, because you got to track 50 million people's sleep patterns and then map that to health. So I believe that privacy is an illusion. It does not exist. You have facial recognition that every government uses. China recently had a football stadium filled with 20,000 people looking for one guy. This is a stadium where everybody has black hair, everybody is Asian, and everybody was pretty much male. It took a matter of seconds to find the one face they were looking for. So there is no privacy. So as long as we can accept that and young people live their lives more open, that also means you have transparency. Your leaders have to then be transparent. Your government has to be transparent. So there are benefits to not having privacy. So data is meant to be shared. Now, are there evil uses of it? I wrote a paper 8 years ago saying that the presidency of the United States would be determined by social media, and I explained why. And I had 4 presidential candidates as clients. But I didn't see the idea of Putin coming in and being able to change an election by doing things that were evil genius. So ethics is the same with any technology. You can use fire to cook food, and you can do fire to burn down a village. So I think ethics are something that society needs to teach and deal with, that has nothing to do with disruption and change and everything. If we live an ethical life, then technology won't change that. But to believe that you're going to hold on to your privacy in this world, it does not exist. That genie has left the bottle, in my opinion.
Bom dia. Só para continuar nessa pergunta, você não acha que isso cria um mundo onde as pessoas não podem errar mais?
Great question. So, not picking on China, but China's the most advanced. So, China has now come out with a social score. The government is scoring each individual on how good of a citizen they are. So now what happens is that facial recognition knows that you went to this protest. Now your child can't go to university. You get demoted at job. You watch this, TV channel that was the government promoted, and you went to the thing the government wanted you to do, and you did the right thing, you do better. So they're actually figuring out how to control all of society by letting you know where you stand in a score. Now, when Americans write about this, they go, oh my God, that is the most evil, diabolical thing we've ever heard of. And I agree. But in the US, we have a thing called a credit score. And every purchase you make, everything you do financially goes into that. So it affects whether you can buy a house and get a mortgage. Certain jobs will not hire you unless your credit score is something. So we've been doing the same thing with data. And unfortunately, it is going to inhibit people of trying things. It will make people try to fall in line, but the people that are deciding that falling in line are missing the point. So that is a downside of people not wanting to be, have their permanent record, have some mistake on it.
Vou fazer uma pergunta aqui, Jay.
Oops, going on.
Então, uma pergunta. Você teve uma carreira bastante extensa como empreendedor e executivo. Queria que você comentasse, talvez, qual foi o seu maior desafio e talvez qual foi o maior erro que você já fez e quais foram os aprendizados que você tirou disso. Se você puder compartilhar.
How many months you wanted me to be here to talk about mistakes?
The major one.
It took me a long time to understand how big business works, the politics, the system. And so my biggest mistake was at the start of my career is I assumed whoever I was talking to had that job because they were good at it. They were an expert. The exact opposite is true. There was a book called The Peter Principle. Every person will rise to their level of maximum incompetence. So let me explain this, because once this magic, it was like when the Wizard of Oz goes into color. I mean, the whole world changed for me. So imagine somebody's a great teacher. The students love her. She's a wonderful teacher, fantastic. What do? They promote her and make her principal. Has nothing to do with kids now. She has to deal with teachers and parents. If she's a lousy principal, she'll be there forever. Turns out she's a good principal. So now we'll move to school board to deal with the mayor and funding and bureaucrats. If she's lousy at that, she'll be at the school board, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what happens. And then when you multiply that in industries that are under siege, which if you saw my talk was everything, you have people whose sole motivation in a corporation is not making money. It's self-preservation. How do I keep my job? How do I keep my department? And so you do stuff like, oh, we're allowed to hire now? I'm going to hire a bunch of people. Oh, these 3 people are horrible. They're doing nothing. I'm not firing them because I know sooner or later there's going to be we have to shrink and get rid of people. So now I have some cannon fodder to get rid of. So all the games that go on to business. So it took me decades. And my biggest mistake was I always spoke my mind. That doesn't get you very far. But that's why I never did the wait for the promotion and, I go in like a rocket and then I either, make it to space or blow up. That's my approach. But don't be afraid of mistakes. They're the best things you'll ever do.
Queria aproveitar. Sorry.
No problem.
Queria aproveitar e pedir para você deixar algumas dicas para os nossos alunos e ex-alunos que estão aqui presentes. Então, alguns no início, outros no meio, outros no final da universidade, outros já se formaram. Quais são as principais dicas para que eles sejam disruptivos?
Okay. This one probably isn't being done here. I wrote about it in the book, but it was absolutely genius that a kid did it. A young man got a job at one of the multinational ad agencies. Wanted to get into advertising, was a very creative thinker. And he gets there, and his job's down here. You know, just mindless, hating every day of his life, and realizing it will take him 20 years before he gets to do something fun and creative. He also noticed that the most famous creative directors of the big 5 global agencies, no one had bought their names as keywords. So everyone Googles themselves. So he bought their names, spent $9, and when they Googled themselves, they said, hey, I want to work for you, here's my portfolio. 3 of the 5 called him. 2 of the 5 offered him a job. He suddenly made 5x what he used to make and saved those 20 years. Here's the message. Go find yourself a mentor on LinkedIn. Find somebody that's at a different stage of their career in the industry or field that you're interested in. Those people want to share their knowledge. They want to feel valid. They want to have purpose. Don't email them, hey, hire me, I need a job. Start a dialogue of, what can you tell me about this? Or I saw this article, I wanted to share this with you. Build that rapport, and you now have an angel that will guide you. Absolutely, you know, critical in this day and age, and the easiest thing for you to do. That's probably the best advice.
Mais perguntas? Ninguém mais?
How about a quick round of applause for the translator?
Pessoal, Vaba, mais alguma questão?
Queria só agradecer, Jay, pela oportunidade de você ter vindo aqui compartilhar todos os seus conhecimentos e aprendizados todos esses anos de empreendedorismo. E você está sempre convidado para voltar, para poder compartilhar com a gente e também na nossa trilha de empreendedorismo. Obrigado.
Obrigado,
Thank
gente.
you all.